And welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Mark Bishop Show. My special guest for this episode was born and raised in Nebraska. We won't hold that against her, come on. And now resides with her family in Nashville, Tennessee. That's gone up the scale a bit, hasn't it? She holds a BS, which stands for bullshit, in a family and... Not really. A Bachelor of Science in Family and Human Services from John Brown University. And she's certified as a coach through the Life Purpose Institute. She loves to travel and accepts that her study abroad experience in college was extremely formative, ultimately changing the way that she now sees and experiences the world. And I'd like to welcome Kyla Cofer, who's a leadership coach, podcaster, and a keynote speaker. Hi there, welcome.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
Kyla, you have been on the starting end of multiple nonprofits and businesses. Your bio, and interesting that I've read about you, you've spent almost 20 years in the pursuit of justice through volunteering, donating, supporting, and being an advocate for numerous causes. Let me ask you, what set you down that rabbit hole, my friend?
I think you already mentioned it, that study abroad experience that I had. It was in Latin America, and it was really focused on justice. Really, we talked about it a lot and every day, and that's where I really learned about nonprofit work. That's where I really learned about social justice. I had never heard the term social justice before that experience, and so that really was pivotal in wanting and what am I looking for here? In making me motivated to kind of pursue those avenues. So I spent a lot of time in nonprofits. I spent a lot of time advocating for things, just because I think that it's important.
Well, that's very good, because, I mean, no one stands there and says, come on, we're going to promote you to do everything for nothing. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's got to come from the soul and from the heart, and that makes you, a nice, reasonable, decent person. So thank you for that.
Oh.
But you were on the founding board for the national nonprofit People Loving Nashville, and you went on to support small business owners as a legal secretary and a bookkeeper. That must have been interesting for you.
It really was. I learned a lot. And, what was interesting is obviously being on a founding board and watching a business grow, it was a nonprofit, but nonprofits are businesses, right? So helping that grow and get started, and now it's extremely successful. And then moving from that into working as a legal secretary, working as bookkeeper for small businesses, I just learned a lot about running a business. And while I was doing that, I kept thinking in the back of my head, like, you're preparing for something. Like, you need to learn all these different avenues because there's something in here that you need to know to get you to the next space. And they did. It's what took me there. And I think nothing is wasted in our lives, right? So nothing at all, and everything's connected. And so all those things that I learned, they were exactly what I needed to help me get started. I mean, just today I was preparing a contract agreement, and I could do that, and it made sense to me because of the legal experience that I had. So all of those things weave in and have really helped me along my journey.
There you go. And I'm with you on that. I believe the same thing. The old cliche of one door closes and another one opens. Well, I think in what you're saying is true in reference to, look, everything is connected from a point of view of you might have got a rejection here, but it's going to give you another selection there, So,
that's one of the things I talk about a lot is, failure, making mistakes, or like rejection. When you have a point where you are rejected, you do have a loss somewhere, it really just teaches you one way that it doesn't work. It's just an iteration. It's not like this is just horrible and I'm not successful at all. It's, well, that didn't work. So what will work? What's the next thing?
Mm-hmm. Well, in today's day and age, coming out of COVID, all the misery around, all the negativity, we're in a multidimensional shift. The earth, if you're into astrology at all or some other sciences, we're going through an incredible time on this planet. And there must be a lot of people out there a little down, concerned, worried, negative. So, you regard yourself as a thought leader, as a podcaster, a leadership coach, and a keynote speaker and writer, and helping leaders excel. So my question to you is, how do you bring all of that together to do what you do?
a little bits at a time. Sometimes it's kind of messy, but it's not like I'm doing all of those things at once. So I don't spend an entire day. In the morning, I wake up and do a keynote, in the afternoon, I do a podcast. It's not quite like that. It's little bits every day. So I might have a keynote event here and there. My podcast, we promote that as we go. I've got a team that helps me out. And I just do what I can when I can. But I really want to help other leaders do some of that personal transformation work that I've done. And so it's all based in personal transformation, personal development, self-worth, self-efficacy, and finding different avenues to do that. So whether I'm promoting that through a keynote talk, my podcast, which is Leadership School, or a podcaster school where I'm teaching other people to do a podcast, there's lots of different avenues to get the same message across.
Yeah, well, of course, we're both sort of in the same vein. We both, you have more of a school than what I do. I do teach, but I teach businesses mainly how to run a show for their own business and for lead generation purposes. Because, people expect a lot. I don't know if you get this too, but people say to me, well, this is terrific, my own show, and how long will it be before I get, 100,000 listeners? And I say, maybe if you're still alive in another 90 years. What do you mean? Well, what have I got? How many am I going to have when I start? None. Oh, well, how does it work? Very simply, you have to work at it and build it up, build a following, and, explain that, look, podcasting is not commercial radio or linear television. You have an audience that if they're going to follow you, they're going to follow you because they like what they hear, it does something for them, and they become loyal, intentional listeners. And, you might only have 100 one day, or 200 or 300, but if they love what you do and they're intentional, then that's better than thinking you've got 20,000 with 0.111 of 1% even bothering to listen to what you're talking about. So,
You nailed it.
Yeah, and when I do that sort of helps a little bit because, they all watch Joe Rogan like I do at night in bed. And except when he swears, I don't like that. I'm an old-fashioned 40-year-old radio and television guy. And if we did that, you're sacked on the spot, But they can seem to get away with murder today, him and Hal and the other bloke. But, drinking on air as well. But it doesn't matter. It's podcasting. Do what you want. Oh, okay.
Exactly. And like I said earlier, like I was saying earlier too, just to tag off of what you just said, that success is your own definition of success. So we all define that in different way. So if success to you is having 100,000 downloads per episode, you're going to have to really put a lot of effort and energy into that, and probably some money.
And a lot of money too, to be honest with you. And it's the same old big guns, whether it's NPR, Rogan, or somebody else with the big budgets, they're up there in your top 10 as usual, and of course the sponsors go after them.
They started with 0 listeners, right? Their
Yes.
first episode, like when they first started, they didn't know if anybody would listen, and they had to build up to that. But if your idea of success is growing your confidence, giving yourself some credibility, giving yourself a name, giving something for people to refer to you about, that's a different level of success. And you get that with podcasting, and it builds this confidence and builds a brand for yourself as well,
You're
whether
absolutely
you have 20
dead
listeners
right.
or 20,000.
That's exactly right. And then you're touching on the human spirit. You're touching on psychology there. You're touching on, bettering oneself, learning to come out of oneself a little. I mean, in the real world, I think, from what I was told, Rogan was a comedian or something. He already had a big brand name, didn't he, before he even opened his show, correct? In which case, you can understand getting followers. He already had followers. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and somebody like an NPR, they listen all across the country. And I listen to NPR in the car. I love the stories. I love the different segments and so on. And, I can see that people would like to hear that too. But when you look at the 1.8 million podcasters in America, they're all different and different shows and the this and the that. Not everybody's got massive followers. And you're dead right in what you're saying, that it's a personal thing, which brings me to, although you do what I do and you help small business owners, create podcasts to grow their audience and their share and so on. But of all the things that you do, what's the biggest one you enjoy, Kyla? What's the thing that gets to you?
Oh, that's hard.
And that covers keynote speaking as well, because what is a keynote speaker? You've got to talk on what the topic is about, or what? Does that restrict you?
I'm sorry. I don't think can you clarify a little bit more? I don't think I quite understand your question.
All right. I'm on the phone. I ring up and I say, look, Kyla, would you come and be a keynote speaker at this particular conference, please? Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, what are you going to speak about and for how long?
Yeah. Okay. So a keynote speaker is going to be like at your event. It's going to be that main speaker, the one who motivates you, inspires you, gives you something to take away with, reminds you how great the conference was, and makes you feel like this was worth your money. This was worth the event. This is really good. And so I really do love keynote speaking. And of all the things I do, I mean, it's hard to pick one, but there's nothing that beats for me being on a stage and knowing that there's somebody in the audience that I'm helping in that moment.
You're an actor.
It's just
yes, you are.
Amazing.
You should have been in New York there on the stage. Yes. You're an actor. An actor does that. You love to address. But here's something you said at the end of a conference, how great it was, blah, blah. I'm throwing you in at the beginning when everybody's tired and excited but looking forward to the conference. But the conference is all about making steel. Now, we've hired this Kyla Cofer bird to do what? What do you know about steel?
Yeah, I'm just there really to motivate and inspire you and to make you to really that's all I got to say. I'm there for your motivation and inspiration and really to help bring that audience together and help you bring people together when they're ready in this moment.
Now you got it. And it's an interesting job because you know what you're doing, don't you? You are bringing them together to be in a receptive psychological mode to then focus on the conference because they're in a better state of mind. How does the Leadership School podcast help leaders more than what you said before?
Well, what's really fun about the Leadership School podcast is it's not all about me. It's about the listeners and it's about my guests. So I have been interviewing guests from literally all over the world. I mean, we've had Singapore, Australia, US, they're all over the world. And we talk about different areas of leadership. And it's funny because I love emotional intelligence a lot. So most of my conversations end up kind of veering back towards emotional intelligence.
Right.
But it's really giving anybody who listens a chance to hear from a leadership expert who's either written a book, has a method, or has a lot of leadership experience. Mm-hmm. And to have some camaraderie there to go, oh, there's someone who's been there, who gets it. And at least walk away with one thing. I mean, there's a lot of things you can walk away with after listening to one episode, but my goal is that you'll remember at least one of them. Mm-hmm. And it could be anything from how to win someone over in an argument, or how to communicate better with your team, or how to work together with someone when you're remote, how to hire, how to fire, how to deal with conflict. I mean, we talk about so many different things that if you listen, I promise that anybody who listens to several episodes will become a better leader just by engaging.
All right, so that's how you would regard, that your podcasting and leadership go together. That's how, in your way, that podcasting and the leadership do go together overall to do and achieve what you're trying to do. So who is the Podcaster School for then? I mean, is it just leaders?
No, it's not actually. So the Leadership School podcast, really, that's my podcast. That is specifically for leaders, but it really is for anybody. But the Podcaster School is for anybody who wants to start a podcast. It really can be anybody, whether you want to start a podcast about, your fashion or your jewelry, or if you want to start it about your business. But I do work really well with small business owners and entrepreneurs, especially if you want to have guest episodes, because I've worked so well with guests and have such a good reputation having guests on my podcast.
Right.
So that's where my expertise is. But I really have helped several different podcasters from different areas. People who just want to have their dream show, who've always had a dream to have a podcast, but have no technology experience or no understanding of how to get started. And I'm going to help you all the way through. Because
it's not just that. You know what? It's done. It's opened up. I mean, I was in radio and television 40 years in Australia, and I had to start at the bottom as a young whippersnapper, 19 years old, after 4.5 years of night school. And the reality was you had to go through country to get to provincial, a bigger city, and then to the big league, if you were good enough, in capital city radio. And having done that, I wanted television, so I had to start all over again. Now, what does that mean? In Australia, I don't know about here, but in Australia, it means living in caravans with no air. In hot desert countries, it means you don't drive, you have a bike, because they paid you nothing. You had to learn your craft. And to learn your craft, you had to do what you had to do. Be good at it to move up the ladder, so to speak, right? So that's a good thing that you're doing there. None of this sleeping with them on the couch jazz. It doesn't work, you know. So You've got to do it the hard way. And I was fortunate enough to do it that way, right through. But when I see, those days, people who would have loved to have been on air and done a show, it was very difficult to get in. It was tough. Now, years later, you're paying stations. I can't get over that. I've just got, 2 years ago, I did a 6-month talk bag here in Tucson on an AM show. And it rated exceptionally well. I think it was close to number 1, but it didn't matter. Here's what happened. I still had to produce it, write it, host it, then go out on 112-degree heat and sell it. And then once I did, I had to give 50% of the take to the management. So, the days of you've got a talent, we're going to pay you for it, I don't know where they are anymore. You're paying them. So you might as well do a darn podcast from your kitchen table and put your head in the bucket and do what you want to do. It's likely to be hit anyway. Who knows? But there you go.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think it's part of we all are kind of working to create this legacy of our lives. I mean, a legacy, I don't think is something that is when you die, it's not like the way you look back. The legacy is the everyday.
Yeah.
And so it's who do you want to be and how do you want to show up in the world? And a podcast is it's not just a great way to do it, to get yourself out there, but it's really fun. And so if you don't know how to do it, if it's overwhelming, just have someone show you how. And that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through it so that you can really have that dream, because it's so fun and fulfilling, and it builds your confidence, and it really just changes your perspective on
Does it cost much money to go to your school in Tennessee?
Well, does it cost much money? Well,
yeah. Is it a realistic entry level? I mean,
It's definitely realistic. And I have different levels, of course, depending on what you actually need and what you want.
Good.
Do you want hand holding, or do you want to just do it yourself? We'll take you through.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, but look, you're getting a plug, so we might as well talk about that too. Mine's minimal too, because I live in an area where, those that would love to do it, don't have the budget, so you've got to support them. And in fact, I do free shows for nonprofits and God knows what, because I do enjoy it. But no, you've got to be prepared to do that, give as well as take, Now, other things, your other services that you do offer, we've talked about your keynote speaking, so you're a public speaker. And now we've talked about podcasting. So I want to get into a little bit more of the the leadership component of it. You say we've got these guest interviews from all over the world. How do you conjure them up to start with? Are these people doing the same thing as you're doing in different countries, or what?
No, not necessarily. It's, there are a lot of different ways to find guests for your podcast, which is something I go over when I'm teaching people how to podcast. But I just implement some of those methods. Sometimes I just ask people I know, as I've met people networking, or I've met people through speaking. I've done several podcasts with people I've met at conferences, other speakers, and I've met them, but not necessarily speakers. I did a whole series on education. So I was interviewing college professors, and I just went looking for them. I wanted to interview college leadership professors, and that's who I wanted to talk to. So, guests can come from anywhere.
Oh, can they ever? You've got a plethora, haven't you, really, of people you could invite. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's just what I'm looking for the show at that time, and trying to find those people. But yeah, people, they're all over. I mean, people in leadership roles, from government to IT to accounting. We've had them all.
No, it makes it interesting. You learn about different ways of life and so on.
Well, diversity is really important to me. I don't think that we need to hear just from one voice. So my goal is to hear from young, old, very experienced, just a little bit experienced, every race, every religion, every color. I want everybody.
Well, you sound like you're probably as strict as what I am, from a point of view of caring about people, caring about your students so much that you don't want to let them down. And what does that mean, Mark? Well, this is what it means. I've got a bit of a reputation of being severely hard on students. Well, not really, because you've come to me. You want to do it. You want to do this and do that. You've got to work at it. Oh, oh, work. I mean, there's a lot of people that wouldn't work in an iron lung. You know what I mean, right? So you've got to prepare. You've got to be. I mean, I run a one-man show, and I'm 7 days a week writing, and weekends and Sundays, and doing whatever, chasing guests down. You've got to be prepared to put in. And the reality is, if you do that, you're more likely to achieve what you're trying to achieve. And I've got some clients pulling something like 420% ROI of what they've spent with me the last 4 years. So We're doing something right. But that also means tons of emails, tons to databases, tons to other things you've got to do, all the social media, yada, yada, yada. It never ends. So it does come back, doesn't it, to being very key.
It doesn't just happen. It's so funny how we start out when we're 19 or something and we think, well, the world's just easy. Everything takes care of itself.
Yeah, right. But
then you have to start realizing that, you really have to put a lot of effort in. But a lot of effort brings a lot of reward.
That's about it. Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, because it's a little similar to preparing for a show, but when you do your keynote speaking and so on, do you have a method or a system perhaps that you can share how you address that?
Yeah, I actually have two. So it depends on what talk I'm giving at the time. But one of my most popular talks is on burnout prevention. And so I have a 3-step system for preventing burnout that has been proven to be really, really valuable and help people not just prevent burnout, but to kind of heal from it. So it's the cha-cha method. And yes, I actually teach everybody how to do the cha-cha during my keynote. It's a lot of fun.
I don't know what the devil she was talking about for a minute. I didn't know you did a dancing class or a podcast, but don't.
I know. I surprise everybody. Although now you're not going to be surprised, but just don't tell anybody. It's a lot of fun. But it stands for CHA, which is Connect, Heal, Act, Repeat.
Okay.
So focus on connecting with other people and connecting with yourself, connecting internally and building the connections around you. And if anybody's struggling with burnout, that's the number one thing I'm going to tell people is, have you connected with yourself? Have you reset? That's like, with your hobbies, or what are your relationships like? And then the second one is to heal, pay attention to your health, mental and physical health, and just really pay attention to those things. And then my third step is action. Like, okay, great to know all those things, but you got to do something about it. Take some active steps to take care of yourself.
So, are you a good mom?
I'm a great mom.
Are you a good wife?
I don't know. You have to ask my partner about that.
Are you happily married?
I am.
Then you have a right to be a life coach. That's where I'm coming from on that. Because you do understand, don't you? Every Tom, Dick, and Harry's now becoming a life coach, right? So my argument is, I had someone the other day try to sell the devil out of me, right? Didn't even bother to look at my website, who I was or anything else. And, this person hasn't even lived yet. And to think what I've been through at my age and so on and blah, 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 I respect them. But at the end of the day, how on earth can they help me if they've lived 5 minutes? You know what I mean? And if they haven't done anything... I don't dig that sort of thing, Kyla. I just can't get it. You got to earn your stripes in everything. Well, what are you saying then, Mark? I shouldn't do a course and be a life coach because, I'm only quarter your age or something? No. What am I really trying to say, Kyla?
Well, I think you're really trying to say that it's, the experience and the wisdom matters, and that it's.
It does. That's your answer. That it does. That's it. That's it. Now, Kyla at lifecoachkyla.com. That's the email if you'd like to send her an email and blast hell out of her or hire her and pay a fortune for her. Kyla, Kyla, at lifecoachkyla.com. That's pretty simple. But the website first. I think people like to have a cup of joe or tea, maybe without the crumpets, but in their pajamas. And have a good look at your website. You do have one, don't you?
I do. You can find me at Kyla, Kyla, Cofer. That's COF. Let's see, F as in Frank, ER.com.
Say it again for me.
KYLACOFER.com.
Okay. And you're also on LinkedIn. That's big these days for finding people. You can't get away anymore. They'll find you somewhere, don't they? Hey?
No, I'm everywhere. You can look up Podcaster School. You can look up Kyla Cofer Coaching, Leadership School Podcast. And I'm on all the social medias. It's not hard to find me.
Very good. I'm too shy to get out there. I hide behind a wall. That's what I do. But anyway, Podcaster.net, blah, blah, blah. I won't give your phone number out, or would you like? Yeah, it's a company phone. So Would you like to give that number if somebody would like to call you directly?
Well, let's actually just stick with email and
Okay. All right.
website. I think that's probably the easiest way to reach me, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
I'm not that great at answering the phone.
Oh, you're slack.
Except for when you call, Mark.
Oh, well,
Except
I'll
for when
go
you
somewhere
call.
else. No, it doesn't matter now. I was going to come to your school, but no. Oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear, oh, dear. Listen, you are a bright spark, and you are doing good work, because I've happened to have a little birdie who told me that you do excellent work with people and you help them and you give your heart and soul. And you know what? It's so nice, because I talk with the owner of Peter, and I interview all sorts of people across the continent of a morning early. And there's so many lovely people out there trying to do things. And look what our nurses did and our doctors did during that very bad period. Did you ever see that documentary on YouTube in reference to when it started in New York, COVID? Oh, man, it was beautifully done, but sad. I was in tears, I tell you. And, where I am in Tucson, for one, I think it was for about a week, we were number one in the country, with infections. So, and it's still going on. People don't realize it. People are just so sick of masks, sick of talking about, sick of it. There's still 100,000 a day, passing through COVID. So be careful out there. Be careful yourself, Kyla. Look after yourself and your people, and keep positive and help people get up off the ground, because you do a wonderful job, okay?
Same to you, Mark. Thank you so much. It's so great to talk to you.
Kyla Cofer, ladies and gentlemen, on the Mark Bishop Show. An absolute honor to have her on. Look out for and hear a podcast on the different podcast platforms across the country. And maybe one day she'll be a keynote at somewhere you're at, and you can say, walk up, don't be scared. She won't budge your head off. It's a nice-looking lady, very gentle. Might whack you across the head if you don't say the right thing, but not really. Go up and say, hi, I heard you once being interviewed, and you were very good. Kyla Cofer. All right. Thank you, my dear. God bless and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.